Hey, Rebel Bankers. This is your host, Chris Naugle, and welcome to the show. So I'm here with Olivier LePage, and if you didn't know, he's Canadian, and we're going to talk a little bit about how he got started, some of his obstacles that he had to overcome, and some of the deals that he's done, and a whole lot more than that. So before we get into his story, let's talk about yours. Let's talk about your journey. So your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker is simple. There's a couple things you can do. You can grab a copy of our book, The Private Money Guide, or just check us out online at chrisnaugle.com for all of our programs and every other event that we have going on. So I'm really excited to do this one because how this happened is we were in San Diego at a real estate event, and we were both talking, and I found out he was from Canada. We got talking about his story, and his story goes something like this. He's been in business 11 years. He's done 135 deals in 11 years. It's been a mix of wholesale deals, flips, rentals, all sorts of stuff. But the best part is his journey, how he got to where he's at. And that's the most important thing that we can usually get to, is not just where somebody's at, the successes that they're having today. I think the best part is the journey, the struggles that someone goes through. So that's what we're going to drill in today. That's what we're going to really get into. So I said his name in French, but we're going to go with Oliver for right now. So welcome to the show, Oliver, the Real Estate Money School. We're super excited to have you here. Actually, you're my first Canadian guest, and I'm really excited to hear your journey. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your investing business, what it's like right now, and just, tell everybody who you are.
Absolutely. Hi, Chris, and hi, everybody. So, Oliver here from Montreal, Canada, and actually my journey started, like Chris said, 11 years ago. And back then, I just came up for I was out of the country for a year. I was traveling, and I came back, and I had some pressure from my girlfriend to find something, do something with my life, like probably a lot of young men. And so I always had in my head, I wanted to do real estate. I don't know why, but I always had this in my head. I wanted to flip houses, do real estate investing. So I actually came back here. I had no clue how to go in there, no clue what to do or whatever. So I was like, okay, I need a foot in real estate. So I started to do real estate course to become a real estate agent. So that was my first step. And I started also... I started to do a bit of renovation. So it's a mix, but altogether was, putting me into real estate. So it was good. So I was doing a bit of renovation, but I found out really quickly that it wasn't made for me. Actually, I started to get, my knee were hurting, and I had scratch everywhere. Didn't like it. So I stopped it, became a real estate agent, made a bit of money with this. And then I was like, okay, I need to put that money into real estate. I need to do flips. I need to do wholesale or whatever, because I was always, hearing stuff, late at night on TV from the US, you can flip houses without your own money. So I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's try it out. So I had no clue what to do. So at first being a real estate agent, having my license, I started to look on MLS. I started driving around, driving for dollars, it's trying to get to an ugly house in the neighborhood. And then, I started to make offer on what I thought back then was a good deal, which actually today was not that good, but still, I started doing action. So I started making offers. And my first deal actually, which I still own today, is a duplex. Didn't know the area, didn't know real estate. I found out, it's actually funny. I just found out in the paper, local paper. It was a little ad. It was written like, no money down, buy this house, whatever. So I was like, okay, well, maybe this guy could help me. And I went to see the guy. The guy was like, okay, well, you could do it like this, like this, like this. I was like, well, I don't know. This is the only guy I know which knows what to do. So I followed his step. I bought this duplex, which I found out later was in a bad area with bad tenant and had a lot of renovation to do. So wasn't that good of a deal, but I still owe it. Time saved me. And the interesting is back then, it was in 2008. I was like mid-20s. And 2008, right before the crisis, banks were lending even more than whatever the market value was. So it was between 107 and 110, the money that they would lend you. So I got out of the notary because which is the equivalent of a title company here. I got out of the notary and I had $12,000 in my hand. No kidding. So back then I was mid-20. Was like, wow, it's really good. You know,
So
making money buying real estate.
You're 20 years old, mid-20s. It's
Yeah.
your first deal, which is a duplex, and that's awesome. So first deal, and you put 12 grand in your pocket before you even got started on the deal?
Without even starting on the deal,
Oh,
without
yeah.
doing nothing.
Keep going. How did this all pan out?
I put more than 12,000 in, but back then it was like, wow, it's an epiphany. It's really awesome, you know, buying something and making money first day. So, but thing is, back then, that's what I thought was, you know, buying for the right price was like, okay, I'm making, or should I say making money out of a deal. That's what I thought it was, but actually I found out it wasn't, because I had to put more than 12,000 in. But at least I got in, you know, that was the first step for me. I was happy. I got in, and struggle actually was, because you were talking about struggle. It's a really personal story, but I'll get into this because probably a lot of people were going to relate to this. You know, I was trying to call anybody and everybody just to see if they would, you know, get into real estate with me, if they had any money, if they were willing to buy something with me. And obviously the closest people I had around me was my family. So I started talking with them, you know, hey, you want to go into real estate? You want to buy this or that with me? And they were like, well, not really. And, you know, I was, you know, insisting, and, you know, I was, you know, talking to them every weekend. So they were like, okay, well, you know what? Bring me something, bring me a deal, and we'll check it out. So I continued, you know, obviously trying to find deals here and there. And I remember it was a 6-apartment building that I found, you know, in the suburb of Montreal. And it was really interesting. It was cash flowing, positive. It was, you know, it was an okay deal. I don't remember the number exactly, but it was cash flowing, which is one of the most important thing. And then I presented that to my family, and they were like, okay, well, it sounds interesting and everything. So I set up all the whole offer. I even set up the cashback, because I was, you know, putting an offer on the building, and then I was pretending there was work to do, but there was not. And then I had a cashback at the notary. So kind of like the same thing that with my first deal. So I was trying to get money out as soon as I bought the building.
And Oliver, after your first duplex you bought, how long was it until you did this second deal with, and I would assume at this point, your parents were the ones that were funding this deal. So they were becoming your private investors?
Well, that's the thing. Actually, I'm going to get to that. I was trying to make them become my lenders, but my first deal, I just bought it by myself, because I just had to raise my arm, and I had a mortgage from the bank. It was pretty easy back then, which is totally different right now. It's really hard to get money from the bank, but back then it was so easy. It was ridiculous. That's probably why it was a crisis afterward. And so I was trying to get them into that deal. And like halfway through it, they let me down. So I was like, oh. And to answer your question, it was a few months later, you know, because I was really active. That was actually what I wanted to do. And I was a real estate agent. So I had a lot of time on my plate. So I was looking for a deal every day. I was making an offer probably 2 or 3 a week back then. And I was trying to get them into that deal. And they let me down. So I was like, oh, well, okay. You know, they started to create some tension. I was like, well, you know, it's a good deal. Well, why don't you want to get in? And actually, it didn't work because I had nobody else. So I just let down that deal. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. Let's find out something else. And then a few weeks, months later, found another 3-apartment building right in the city. So it was really well located and everything. And it was renovated. So same thing. I was trying to, you know, get people on board with me, people that had money, people that would help me get a mortgage from the bank. And same thing happened. They let me down. And, you know, I don't, when I say I don't have issue or anything with this, because obviously, you know, they weren't in real estate. They didn't know how it worked and everything. And they were like, oh, you know, being cautious with me, because I didn't have any track record either. So, but I was trying to get them in because in my head, it was like the best thing in the world, investing in real estate.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
still have the same thing right now. I still think the same thing, but I have a track record. So it's really different when I talk to investor. But they let me down, same thing. And it was a good deal. And it started to create so much tension. That was a really, really big struggle that I had back then because it started to create tension. I was like, wow, it's my family, so be careful. But at the same time, I was like, wow, I wanted to get into real estate, so I can't wait for other people to then, get on board with me. So I was like, well, you know what? Fine. It's okay. I just told them, oh, it's okay. No worries. And then I started to, get on my own. And that's when it started to get some tension also. And I'm sure probably a lot of people are trying to do the same thing, get their family or friends or people that are close to them on board into real estate. And if people don't know about real estate, it's really hard to convince them that it's good or that they're going to make money out of it because they don't know anything about it. So it honestly started to create some tension afterward. And I started buying another duplex. That was my second deal. And created a lot of tension afterwards. So I literally stopped talking to them, because
So you actually stopped talking to your parents?
Yeah.
Wow, that relates so
Literally.
much. I know.
Literally.
I had that happen. So
Yeah.
and that's a good takeaway right there. Is a lot of times when we get into this business, obviously money's always the hurdle. It's a huge external obstacle is financing, sourcing, where the money's going to come from and where the deal's going to come from. Sounded like you didn't have a problem finding deals because you had time and you were out there looking for deals. But your external struggles and your external obstacles that you had, like talk a little bit about those. I mean, because if it was not being able to get money from your parents, which that's always the hardest thing. I mean, they love you, and the people closest to us, they want to protect us. They almost want to insulate us, put us in a little cocoon. And, and sometimes in doing that, they kind of almost stop us from going out and going after our dreams. So what other external obstacles did you have to overcome outside of this one with your parents?
Well, obviously afterward, the crisis happened in 2008. So it was getting really, really hard to get money from the bank to get a mortgage. And afterward, I didn't get money from my parents or anything because obviously from what I said. So I was like, okay, well, I need to find a way to get money and get a deal or get mortgage or whatever. I needed money to buy real estate. So one other struggle that I had was obviously as soon as I found another deal, I was like, okay, well, how do I set it up? And who do I talk to? I need to have a partner. I need to have someone that knows about real estate or just have money and can help me out. So that was my main struggle afterward, which is actually, I can tell you today, it's so different with Facebook, social media and all that stuff. Podcast, there's a lot of people that tell you, that can help you with real estate. So today is really, really easy. So I don't think anybody should have an excuse with that because back then I didn't know anybody. There was no Facebook. There was nobody, apart from, a few big guru that had an infomercial on late at night. That's the only people, honestly, that I knew were doing real estate. We're doing what I wanted to do. So
and I know
it was really hard to find someone that could help me. That was my main struggle.
And I love that you started right before the crash. And I know in Canada, I don't think you got hit as hard as we did here in the States, but no. I knew a lot of investors that were doing this in pre-2008. And when 2008, they were out of the business. They were doing something else.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I mean, how about internal obstacles? What other things were you facing? I mean, the market crashed. Bank funding dried up, which was at that point, like you were kind of on that role. You were like, wow, I can buy this property. I can take it to my bank and I can actually walk out with a check. So then that all dried up and then you couldn't get the money from your parents. I mean, were you scared? Did that slow you down? I mean, did you have hesitation or like what happened internally and how were you living? Because if you were doing all this, spending the time to do that, did you have another job? Like what was going on internally with you?
Really good question. Actually, I was a real estate agent, so I had a commission, some small commission here and there. I was selling maybe 10 houses a year, so which is not that much, but it was enough to live. And also back then I had my first daughter, so I didn't work as much as I could or as I'm doing today. So that's another struggle. I took 4 months off, to spend some times at home, and then started doing real estate again, and starting to find a way. And struggle that I had internally was I had no confidence. I had absolutely no information about how to do it. How, what number should I put on? How should I offer? What's the percentage, or all that stuff? And I was really scared, no confidence, and I was, trying to grab on anything that could help me. And it's a really bad situation because actually I turned out to, found some partner that was, not didn't had really good intention. So I lost a lot of money because of that.
So
but I
hold on a
learned a
second.
lot though.
With that partner, explain like what happened there, because that's an important thing. And I know a lot of people that get into this business, they get into it with a partner. I mean, what happened with the partner?
I actually was a transaction that I did, which was really close to my house. I started building that website. I just had an idea at one point, and I was like, okay, well, let's start a website. And then, that website was, starting to do really well. And I was the first rank on Google. Nobody else was doing that back here in Montreal. So I was ranked first, started to have lead coming in. And I found this house, which was really close to me. So I was like, wow, it's a good house. So I need to buy it. And I was calling everybody and anybody to see if someone could, partner up with me, someone that had money. And I found out this guy who was doing wholesale. He was, just out of the city a little bit, and he was doing wholesale. And I was like, hey, you want to partner up with me with this house? I know you have a bit of money, you know the game a little, you're doing it. So he was like, yeah, okay, well, just show me the house and tell me the numbers and I'll help you out. I was like, great, I have someone. Awesome. So it was this house, which was a 1-story house, 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom, which was worth about 250. And it's a funny story actually, because the owner were growing weed out of the basement. So obviously there was a lot of mold and a lot of renovation to be done, and they got caught. So the police came in, they got arrested and everything. And it's funny because they contacted me via my website. As soon as they got caught, they were like, oh, we don't know what to do. We need to sell the house. And I was like, well, great. It's a good opportunity. I'm going to buy it. Didn't turn out very well for 2 things, actually. First thing was the partner. Wasn't really a good partner because actually, he was unreachable. He hired this guy, which was really, really not good. And I was trying to help him. I was the type of guy who wanted to get, on the workplace and trying to help the guy, just by being the helper, just to learn. And then whatever I was doing, the guy was redoing everything. So we lost so much money and so much time because of that. And the other thing why it was a bad deal is because, like I told you, the cops came in and arrested those people, but there was a delay between the arrestation and the court date, obviously. And at one point, the court seized the house, but I was like in the middle of the renovation. And I was in the house, doing renovation. I heard a knock and I was like, okay, open up the door. It was the cops. So it was like, oh, we're coming in to seize the house, taking picture. You can't touch anything anymore. The house is being seized. And you need to call this number if you want anything. But
you owned the house at this point when they seized it.
I didn't really own the house. I was doing a subject too. So can you imagine?
The plot thickens.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a subject to is the owner stays the owner, but I took the mortgage and all the payment. So I was doing the payment for them, and I was putting money in to do renovation. And I was supposed to put money in, and the other guy, which was my partner, was supposed to, reimburse me, which he didn't do. And in the middle of the renovation, cops came in, seized the house. I was like, oh my God, I got 10,000. I got $20,000 in at that point. So I was like, what the hell do I do now? So I learned pretty quickly by calling, I didn't want to call a lawyer because I didn't have any money, obviously. And started calling the number that the cops gave me. And it was the director of the pursuit of the court. I don't know what exactly. Started talking to her and I was like, okay, what's the solution? I was really like, okay, let's find a solution because now I'm $20,000 in. And she was like, well, it's okay if I give you the authorization to sell it, it's fine. So I was like, hey, okay, I'm a real estate agent. I'm going to list a house and I'm going to sell it and recoup part of my investment by making a commission. So that's how I saved it. But I only made $10,000 commission. So I lost $10,000 overall.
That still could have went much worse than that. So
oh yeah. Oh my God.
I can
so
imagine
bad.
how much you learned just from that one experience right there, because not only did you bring on the wrong partner, you got into kind of I don't want to say that subject twos are complicated, but they're not something everybody's familiar with. And it leaves the door open for things like that's the first time I've ever heard of something like that happening. But wow. And today
so bad.
these guys are growing drugs in the basement today. That's legal, isn't it, up in Canada?
It is legal now. Yeah, it's legal.
So now it would have just been an operating business in the basement. It's just so funny how things change like that.
It's funny, yeah.
Speaking of change, Oliver, tell the audience a little bit about the changes that you've went through since those first couple deals. What's changed for you? How do you do business today? And just how have you changed as a person?
Oh my God, so much. And, from then obviously I didn't want to take any more risk because I was really scared of everything. So I started doing wholesaling. I was like, okay, well, it's just wholesale. There's no risk, so making offers, selling the offers. So I did a lot of transactions, just wholesale transaction for like a couple of years until I bought another house. And the big change, honestly, was I was just a one-man show hidden in the shade somewhere. Nobody knew I was doing this because I was a real estate agent, so I didn't want to take any risk by saying, hey, I flip houses, because I was a real estate agent also. And here, it's not, they don't like it here. Okay, we're really check, and the organism that for the real estate agent, they don't like it if you flip. So you have to do it, but really quietly. So that's what I was doing. Back in a dark corner, I was flipping houses, wholesaling. Nobody knew about it until one time I was like, okay, well, people need to know, because nobody knows I'm flipping. And I think I did like around 60, 70 transactions. Nobody knew about it until that point where I started to go to events and I started to talk to people, and I was like, hey, I'm flipping. And, starting to, share stories and all that stuff. And people were like, oh, well, you know what? I did like 2 flips. I was like, well, okay, well, me, I did like 70. People were freaking out. They were like, what, 70 houses? That's a lot. I didn't know, because I was looking at people in the state, there, people that were saying that, oh, I flipped thousands of houses. So I was like, well, okay, I didn't do much, but I didn't know. So I started sharing stories.
That was probably a good thing, because if you did know, you might have actually backed off a little and been like, wow, I'm really doing well. But because you literally almost thought you were behind the curve, because you're like, wow, I'm flipping thousands of houses in the States and I've only done 70. I'm behind. Where in the grand scheme of things, boy, you were cruising. That's awesome.
It's a really good point. You're totally right about this. So actually, I started sharing the house, and what changed was my network. It changed everything, because I started sharing my stories. And at one point I just quit real estate, being a real estate agent. I just stopped doing, because it was a conflict of interest and all that stuff. And I started having trouble with this. I was like, okay, well, I need to choose. I'm either a real estate agent or I'm a real estate investor. And I was like, I want to flip houses. So that's the only thing I'm going to focus on. So I quit being a real estate agent, and I was like, okay, I'm going to crush it right now. And I started doing like 12, 15 deals a year. And I started to buy, obviously, houses. And I remember, since I was, going to a lot of events because I wanted to know more, and I started liking it, I had this guy who told me, because I was asking a lot of questions to a lot of people, but a lot of people were beginner in the event. So, and I asked this guy, and I was like, what's the number? Tell me, what's the offer I should make? What's the percentage? Tell me something, because I have no idea. The guy told me 70%. You need to make 10% profit. You need to make this and that. I was like, wow, okay, this is an epiphany for me. Now I have the numbers. So the only thing I need to do is making offers, because I know the numbers now. So I started making offer like crazy, like 5, 6, 7, 10 a week until I found deals. And then I started flipping 10, 12, 15 houses a year.
So
and I was
Oliver,
on a roll.
Real quick, you're doing all this and you're making these offers. Now you got your formula, but where was all the money coming from? Because I know that the audience is going to be saying, wow, that sounds awesome, but how and where did the money come from? Money's always the biggest barrier for just about every new investor. So how did that transform? In the beginning, you were at the bank, then you attempted the private investor part with your family, with your parents. And then where was all the money coming from for all these deals at this point?
Really good question. So like I said, I was doing a lot of wholesaling, so I didn't need money from that. And then when I started buying again, it was the network. Because I didn't know at first when I was wholesaling, I didn't know how private money and hard money loan, I had no idea what it was. I didn't know how it worked. So when I started talking to people, obviously in the event, there was a lot of private lender. So I started chatting with them. I was like, hey, how does it work? What do you need? What do you need from me to get some money? So I started buying back with private money, as simple as that. And since I had a track record of wholesaling a lot of house, I knew the numbers. So I was like, hey, okay, here's this house. Here's how much is worth. Here's how, how long it's going to take to flip the house, renovate or whatever. Well, at first I didn't really renovate it. I just, paint, broom and clean up and then sell it back. So it was basically private money.
Okay.
So either like hard money lender that would lend me money, or a partner that had money and didn't want to look out for deals. So I just partner up with those people.
Wow. And that was, so 11 years that you've been doing this, 135 transactions. I got to tell you, Oliver, that's an awesome story. And it's a great story because you didn't just like have this easy path. It wasn't like you just started and hey, everything was super easy. No, you fell on your face time and time again. You got told no over and over and it never stopped you. You just kept going. And today I'm sure your business is very different, like you were just saying, and you're just going to keep crushing it. So we're almost out of time, and this has been unbelievably fantastic. Like I said, you're the first person from Canada to do the Real Estate Money School podcast. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to take a lot away from this, and I know our audience is going to leave this motivated and inspired to go out there and take action. So just if our audience wants to get in touch with you and stay connected, how would they go about doing that?
I'm really active on Facebook, Instagram, so you can just type up my name, Olivier LePage.
Do you want to spell that?
It's OLIVIER LEPAGE. So just type this on Facebook, Instagram. I'm really easy to find. I'm really active. I got a YouTube channel, but it's in French. So if you speak French, it's fine. If you don't, maybe it's better on Facebook and Instagram.
I tried the whole French thing with your name in the beginning. It's not quite as easy, but that's perfect. So if anyone wants to get a hold of them, that's how you do it. You just find them on Facebook. If you speak French, check them out on YouTube. And the same goes for all of you here at Money School. If you want to get started on your journey, you're going to have to take that leap of faith. And don't let money be the thing that stops you. You got to remember this. It's never about your actual resources. It's about how resourceful you can be. Just like Oliver here, just like so many other stories, you got to become and you got to get resourceful. And on your journey to becoming a rebel banker, make sure you grab a copy of the Private Money Guide. And if you want to check us out at chrisnaugle.com. That's CHRISNAUGLE.com. So thanks everybody for joining us on this awesome podcast today. I hope you took a lot out of it. And Oliver, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful. It's
my pleasure.
Been amazing hearing your story. So thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.